Okay, so today we're going to be making strawberry preserve or jam, or I can't do jelly because it's going to be fruit in here, no juice, just fruit and sugar. What you're going to need is your grabber for your glasses. If you don't have a food processor, you can get a masher. Me, I'm using my food processor. Jars can get hot, so I have two different type of lid tighteners. I have my sugar already out and my trusty scale. Also my favorite pot, which is a Dutch oven, and your canning pot with your 8-ounce Bonnie jars is what I use, already ready. So let's get started. Okay, first, after you rinse off your strawberries, you're going to cut off the tops, cut them in 4s, and put them inside of a food processor. Now, I am using, for this recipe, I want to say 2.5 pounds of strawberries. I always do a little bit extra because sometimes it cooks down and I won't get exactly what I need or want up out of it. But as you can see, I went to the strawberry farm and these are huge, like really huge organic strawberries. And if you do like us and go strawberry farming or picking, they only last about 2 days. Unless you freeze them or something, because they're that fresh. They don't have any sprays on them to keep them from going bad or anything like that. You can also use the strawberries from the big box store, and they work just fine. Just make sure you rinse them off really well. I also use 2.5 pounds because when you cut off the tops, they kind of lose some of their weight. So that's just for safety measure. Also, if you don't have a scale, I normally weigh out my sugar, and I use a pound of sugar, which is 2 cups, believe it or not. Most of the time these recipes calls for 4 to 8 cups. I don't. I get fresh strawberries or strawberries when they're softer, because the natural sugar in them will help. And also, you're going to need a pack of pectin. This is for, to help gelatinize it for longer storage for me. You can do this also without it. Just boil the strawberries down with sugar. It should also work. But just in case, I have 2 batches that I'm sending, so I want them to stay fresh. The ones that I cook for my house specifically on a real quick day, melt this down and it'll last about 2 days here in the house. The kids literally will take a spoon and just eat it. If you have any strawberries left over, like we do, we put them in a fruit processor and we make fruit roll-ups or fruit leather. It's just you taking the strawberries and putting them in a food dehydrator and pureeing it with honey is what we use, or you can use liquid sugar. I prefer pure honey, it's better. And you just let it dehydrate. It takes about 10 hours to do so, but the kids love it, so so we'll be right back and you'll see me puree it, and you can see what the consistency is that you need for the strawberries to be in. Okay, so we're now loading in the strawberries into the food processor. I use my food processor because it goes fast. I'm busy a lot and I have a lot of stuff to do, especially now what's going on with the coronavirus. I have to keep my little ones busy. Right now it's quiet, and if any parent knows, quiet time is always the time that you look to see if your children are doing something they have no business. But mines are spending time with the great grandma, and the teenagers somewhere on the phone. So this is the best time for me to make this video without the little people. Also, if you noticed in the background, I have soapy dishwater. Always keep soapy dishwater handy because this can get messy, especially if you're doing it with children. So on my food processor, I have a line that says do not max for solids. So please do not go past that. We're going to lock this in place, and it's going to get a little loud. So I'm just letting you know now. Oh God. Would be nice if I plugged it in. Be right back. Okay, so let's try this again. Had to plug it in, you guys. So on my food processor, also at the base of it, there are these little sticky tabs that hold it to the counter. If yours does not have one, hold it and brace. You'll have to stop quite often and scrape down the sides, and this will be your best friend, even for cooking this. I prefer this over any steel. If you have wooden, that helps as well, but I prefer this one. Make sure you scrape down the sides to get all of that in there, because we don't want to waste anything. Now, depending on how big you want your chunks of your strawberries in, you can puree it a little bit more finer than what I did, but this is fine for me and what the kids like because they can see it, and it's just fine. So now we're going to transfer this to the pot, which is sitting directly right there. So, and before you put it in the pot, do not have the pot on yet. Take out the extension pieces, because you don't want them to fall in. And with mine, I have 3. So scrape out all the sides. Now in the background, the pot that you see my little glasses in, you don't want it to come to a complete boil but a roar, which is like little bubbles at the end. I have it on one of my small eyes because I have an electric stove, and it's on number 6. So I wanted to sterilize the glasses. I also put in 1/4 cup of distilled vinegar, which helps them. So now we have this up in here. And remember I told you about the sugar? So I'll let you see for yourself what it measures and what it measures out, so then you'll know. I like to use the measuring machine because it helps me. I have a grandmother who's a diabetic. So if you have one, this ran me about maybe $10. Wait for it to completely go to 0 so it can even itself out. Zoom in. And measure your container first. Once you measure your container, you can find out how much the container is. So when you cut it on, place the container on there and wait for it to even out and go to 0. Then add your sugar. So see, we have 1 pound. 1 pound is also 16 ounces. So, and also if you're getting sugar out the bag, make sure that there's no lumps in it, because it will cause an error in your making. So we're going to directly pour that in. Yeah, it looks like a lot of sugar, but when you see the original recipe, it's not. And I am going to set my stove to 5, which is medium heat. Not medium high, medium heat. When I'm making jelly, then I do it to medium high until I can't stir it down. So we'll come back to this when it starts to break down and boil. Okay. So as of right now, I am going to take my pack of Pactin, which is 1.75 ounces, add it into a bowl, and I'm taking literally 2 ounces of sugar and adding it. These are the jars that I use. These are 8-ounce jars. I like the ones without the tab on it, even though with the decoration, because I put my own tabs on mine. I'll show you that at the end. This actually helps the pectin to blend in a little more, because pectin is a powder, and with the granulated sugar it breaks it up. So let me show you what's going on with the strawberries. So in the pot, excuse me, I'm going to back out a little bit. Stay vigilant and scrape the sides. You don't want to forget anything. And starting to become liquid. All the juices from the fruit is coming out. Now, if you see on the top the little bubbles, that's foam. And some people don't like foam, like when they're making jelly or whatever. I just don't care. When I'm making it for my house, I don't want to do it for aesthetics. I just do it for taste. But if you don't want the foam, you can add in a tablespoon of butter or half a tablespoon of margarine when it starts to really boil, and that'll cut down on the foam. So we're going to let that go and sit. So in the meantime, this is what I mean by a roar, excuse me. They're in the distilled vinegar solution, so they're cleaning, and I'll show you how to remove them in a minute. See, still not boiling. And in a separate bowl or container, because I don't use the pot, because when you get a canning set, it comes with a grabber, can tightener, and a stick with a magnet on the middle. My children play with my magnet and I have no idea where it's at. So I use warm water. You just want the ring around here to get soft enough so when you put it on here, it causes a great tight seal. And I'll show you how to do that. We're going to check back in a few minutes. Okay, so real quick. And that case I was telling you about, you normally get a funnel, which is different than this type of funnel. It has a wider base that fits over the wide mouth and the normal mouth jars. I just asked my child where mine is, and as usual, can't nobody find my green one or blue one. So I'm going to use this. No, it has not been on a card, but we do a lot of arts and crafts, and this comes in handy when filling up stuff with sand or whatever else. So I had a new pack, so I'm going to use this one. It's going to help to pour in and keep everything neatly into the jar, and for me to get my exact measurement of right in the middle second rim. Well, it's more than one rim here if you can't see, but I'm gonna zoom in. The first rim, I'm sorry, to you guys, but it's the second rim for me. That makes it look great and gives it enough head space for when I get ready to seal. Anyhow, back to this. This has been boiling for about 15 minutes. Now you can see it's back up off the steam. It is more foam now. I don't know if you need some more light. Is that better? Okay. It's more foam now. And some people will literally take the time and scoop this out. I don't. This is just for home. And at this point, this is when you want to add the pectin. So now we are adding the pectin and the sugar mixture. Let's make sure we get all of it. We add it a little at a time and mix it in. And I prefer to use plastic utensils. You can also get a whisk that's plastic and do it. Some pots along with steel can cause a reaction. People have gotten electrocuted or fires, or just real hot. I just prefer to use a wooden handle with a plastic spatula at the end. So we're adding this in slowly and incorporating it every time. If you can hear something like nail tapping in the back, my puppy is walking in the kitchen. Yeah, he woke up from a nap, so hopefully he heads out the door. Okay, so we're going to get all of this done and out of the bowl, because you don't want anything to go to waste. Now, like I said before, that pack of pectin for this recipe specifically is 1.75 ounces. I figured that's enough for what I need it for. You can use another half a pack if you're going to store it longer than I am. This is just for your home personal use. I have another recipe for when I ship it out to friends who stay in different states. Hi, Jasmine. My teenager's being nosy. So you want to make sure that incorporates in. And you want to let this boil, bring up to a boil. And as you can see, it's boiling. But I shouldn't be able to stir it down. I want to get it to the point that when I stir, I cannot stir it down at all. So that can take anywhere depending on how juicy the strawberries are, how sweet they are, how much sugar you have in. You know, you really just have to eye it. This recipe from start to finish takes at the max an hour for prep. So if you don't have the time for that, prepare all the stuff ahead, like the cutting and the washing of the jars and stuff like that. You can do that ahead of time and have it sitting there. But me, I had time, and I've had a couple of friends ask me about this, and I don't mind sharing at all, especially now with what's going on. You just want to start making stuff yourself. So, but in the background, I am going to make a video today on how to plant, well, I'm going to plant my elephant garlic. I've already have other garlic planted and out in the garden, but I'll show you what they're supposed to look like, the bulbs, and I'll explain what exactly I have in my garden bed. Garlic and elephant garlic and leeks are really hardy vegetables. They can take a light frost, so that's why a lot of people started in fall. They're just, you know, something staple wise that we have to have in our house. So, oh my goodness. And I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at what I'm doing. I have the back door open to let it air out because it's 80 degrees here in middle Georgia. And me doing this, it can get hot. I have water boiling and this boiling, it could get hot. My dog is rolling around in the grass on her back and it looks funny. I have a German Shepherd and a black boxer puppy. So they keep it interesting just along with the kids. So now mind you, I still have my stuff on medium heat. Because when you're dealing with an electric stove, not gas. When you're dealing with an electric stove, when you cut off the pilot, it still stays hot for about anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes, depending on how high you had it. So when you're making this recipe, from where you see it, when it starts to boil to where you can't stir it down, you want to set a timer for 2 minutes. That's what I use. I normally have one of my children doing the Mississippi count in the background for about 2 minutes, and then we cut off the eye. If you were doing it with a gas stove, just cut it off after 5 minutes of you know, can't stir it down. I will also link the recipe in verbal words at the bottom. I will take questions. You can tweak this as much as you need to. It goes according to people's taste. It really does. Before it starts to boil, I advise you to taste your batter to see if you need more sugar. I mean, some people like more, some don't. When I'm making a batch for my granny, I use the same amount of strawberries, but I use more softer, not firmer strawberries, because we had some firm ones, because it's early in the season. And I use a cup of sugar, just 1 cup. And it'll make about 6 jars for her. This time I'm using bigger jars instead of my normal 4 ounces. So we're going to see how many it makes. You have to do this a couple of times before you actually get, you know, a good accurate on how much it's going to take for you. Me, I always do more jars than what I need because you never know. These jars are fragile. They can break. When you are doing this with the jars, start the water off with the same temperature as the jars and let it all come up to boil at once. If not, the jars will crack. And yeah, that's That's not something you want to happen because it sounds like gunfire. So, as you can see now, I am stirring and it's starting to come not where I need it. Hello, kitten. If you can hear, I have a cat at the back door. It's Jania's cat, Jordan. So, also, when you're looking at the spatula, you want, see all the foam I have? So I know these are real fresh, good strawberries. Strawberries that are sprayed don't do this much foam. This is just natural. So if you can see it, it's almost, when it slows down, it's almost to the consistency of gel. So we're almost there. We're almost there. And I continue to emphasize, scrape down the sides because it's going to gel up. It will stick to the sides. So that's why having this great rubber spatula works great, because you can get all in the nooks and crannies. So, hello, sweetie. So I'm assuming it's getting really hot outside now because the puppy's at the back door in the shade sleep, and Sweetie is in the corner by the washing machine and she's cooling off and panting. So I'm going to give them some water. Okay. Now, as you can see, hold on, Jasmine, can you give Sweetie some water? And as you can see, I'm stirring, but it's not going down. It's still boiling beyond it. This is when I turn off my eye and continue to stir until it sets. And at this point, I am counting in my head. And as I'm counting, I am also thinking and getting my space ready to bring out my jars. Can you pass me them grabbers? So with my, hold on, let me adjust the camera. So with my canning pot, I have one with this. This helps a heck of a lot. And you sit them up. That helps because these jars can be extremely hot. So yeah, be careful with them and put them on a surface that can either take heat or a towel. And we'll be right back because we're finna get the jar set up. Okay, so we're all set up here. I also use a plastic ladle, as you can see, because it's going to help fill up the jars. I also have a clean towel on hand. You want to wipe the rims of the jars when you get through, because sometimes this can get messy. So this has calmed down, and we have to move a little quick, but also keep stirring because it wants to set. It wants to become solid. So we're going to fill up the jars as quick as we possibly can, but please be careful because it can be extremely hot and it will stick to your skin and it will burn. And I am telling you this from past mistakes. So we're going to fill up the jars to right at the rim. Let it drip the rest of it out. And then we're moving on and we're going to keep going. About 2 and a little bit over of these ladles tend to work. And I have 6 8-ounce jars of canning jars with regular mouth. And somebody's at the door. It's probably for my daughter. Her little friends will probably buy, or either the neighbor down the street. Make sure you get all the goodness out. So normally I get about 4 out of this. It's always double the amount of per pound normally. So, and then I get a little bit extra. And the extra I always let the kids eat before it settles. Okay, that one I did a little bit more. Hello, children.
Hey.
So the boys are here. Yay. And I'm going to put them to work today because it's Saturday. Now watch everybody leaves my house. So this one is going to be the extra. And when you get through with this pot, be careful and try to get some hot water in it immediately, because you don't want this stuff to stick, and it makes your cleaning a lot easier. And since I don't have little people here, nobody's going to eat the little leftovers. So as you can see, it makes 4, and that half of pound that I normally use makes always just a little. So we're going to wipe off the jars and the rims. And if you remember, I was telling you about the lids. That's what we're going to use. So the water is still hot, and we're going to take a clean towel. And I have dipped the towel in a little bit of warm water and distilled vinegar to make sure none of the stuff around the rim is sticky. I want to get a good tight seal. And I have to wash up one of these. Look, got a little dirty. So, okay. So now let's seal. Be careful when you're grabbing these because they are warm. Check off any excess water. Gently place on top. And we're going to do that for all of the cans before they go back in the water bath, which you never turned off the pot. It's still on medium heat at a roar. If your water starts boiling, cut down your temperature. This is fine for me because I have an electric stove, but when you have gas, I normally put it on low, and it seems to work just fine. So make sure not to touch the rims, and be really careful when you're putting the tops on. You want them tight, but you don't want them too tight, because you want the seal. If you can hear it now, you can't, they don't do the popping thing. You know how when you open cans and it has the popping thing, you know it's up? When we get through sealing these, they won't make that sound. It's a little warm, but I'm kind of used to this. So now we're going to place the jars back into the pot that is still boiling. And you want to do this carefully and make sure you have one of these. And I like the fact that my basket sits above. It helps, because the other one that I had, it would cause such a splash, and hot water is not fun getting burned by. So you want to place them on the rack and try to keep them upright as much as possible. And let me get the other rim for this one that we had to clean. And as you can hear, my dogs are messing with the cat. Get, go. Anyway, so we're going to lower it back into the bath. And when you're doing the bath, make sure that the water is at least a ½ inch to 1 inch above. If you're using a pressure canner, find out about your altitude, because in some cannings that can make a difference. With this, it really doesn't. Just leave them submerged for about 30 to 45 minutes, and we'll come back at that time and you can hear the cans pop. Okay, so we're back, and I'm going to lift this out, and as you can hear, I have teenagers in the background. So get your towel, get your grips, and I'm using my cutting board, which I've had for about maybe 10 years. This holds up very nicely. I wouldn't recommend eating these for about maybe 24 hours or so. And when you do, make sure to tap the top for the seal. And when they're cooled off in 24 hours, take the rim off unless you're going to ship them. If you're storing them, take the rims off because they'll give you a false seal. And when canning anything, you want to make sure that you keep a tight seal because you don't want anything that's going to give you poison. Me, I keep the caps on mine when I do mine for the house because they never last past a week. So, and I'm checking the seals. This one is, we'll get it eventually. If they're not sealed, just wait. When they get ready to cool down, the air in them will vacuum seal and then they'll be done. These are still pretty warm. Try not to move them around much, but this one I'm going to show you because it's the one where it has the less in it. Now remember when we did this, it was down here. When it cans, it expands, so it's up. And it's still a little liquidy, but once it cools down, it gels. And if you can see the ones that went to the rim, they're right at the rim. So these are 4 full 8 ounces canning jars, and I want to say about 7 ounces. And the other one, they're all 8. So 2.5 pounds of fresh strawberries and 2 cups of sugar and 1 pack of Pactum, which is 1.75 ounces, should make 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 8 ounces, which is about 40 ounces of product. These are good for gifts, making your own jelly and jams because they're better than the store. And me, I always put my stickers on them. I had some that were custom made, but I use those for people when I'm selling them. But these are my little stickers, and I put a date on them, on when they were made, on the top, because on the top of these, if you can see, let me zoom in, they have little lines where you can use a marker and write when you do it or whatever. Some of them I don't do that. I just, put my little sticker on and leave it be. And the ones that I do sell and ship, they have a different sticker sometimes that goes on the front. And if I packaged it myself, then I'll put my stamp on it. If one of the kids package it themselves, they will put their stamp on it. They will either put J1, J2, or J3, depending on who helped me that day packaged it. So my dogs do not like my neighbors. So that is my video. I hope you all like my tutorial. It's not the most perfect thing in the world, but neither is my life. So as usual, have a humble spirit and a garden mind.